At InDigital, we know the public safety professionals hold themselves to a high standard. In fact, standard doesn't do it justice. In over 25 years working alongside you, carrying millions of calls over our IP networks, your dedication has inspired us. That's why our ESI net goes beyond industry standards, not only i3 compliant, but designed to adapt to future development for a network you can count on when it matters most. Learn more at indigital.net.
It is a new day for 911 professionals. They have gone from the most important person you will never see to the most vital piece of public safety. Truth be told, they always have been. The curtain has been pulled back, and they are sharing their stories. Welcome to Imagine Listening. Your worst day is our everyday, by Ricardo Martinez II, and narrated by myself, Ricardo Martinez II, and distributed by Beacon Audio Books. Copyright 2023. That's right, everyone. Finally, I can let everyone know the rumors are true. Imagine Listening, Your Worst Day is Our Everyday is now available as an audiobook on Audible, and it's a long time coming. Very excited. Not a lot of authors get the opportunity to voice their own book, but I had the honor and privilege to do so. So thank you to Beacon Audio Books, as well as my publisher, Titled Town Publishing, for everything, but especially all of you for making the I Am 911 movement, as well as Imagine Listening, what it is today. I appreciate you all more than you know. So go ahead, head out, stream it, download it, however you consume your audiobooks. Imagine Listening is now available. If Within the Trenches has ever taught you something, open your eyes to what it is like to be a 911 dispatcher, or has inspired you to become one, then help support us and join our Patreon. Get exclusive bonus content, one-of-a-kind swag, discounts on merchandise, ad-free early access to new episodes, and much more. To join, please visit patreon.com/WTT podcast. And if you're an industry partner, we have something for you as well. And now, for the show.
This is Jordan, and you're listening to the Code 7 Podcast Network.
Warning. This episode contains the 3 A's of podcasting: adult content, adult language, and awesomeness. You've been warned.
Welcome to Within the Trenches, true stories from the 911 dispatchers who live them.
Hey, what's going on? This is Ricardo with the Code 7 Podcast Network, and this is going to be Within the Trenches, true stories from the 911 dispatchers who live them. This episode is sponsored by InDigital, a leader in next-gen core services, and a big shout-out, as always, to subscribers of the podcast. Thank you so very much for everything, but especially all of you who are watching, listening, supporting, and sharing. I wouldn't be able to do what I do if it wasn't for all of you. So thank you so very much. It has been an amazing experience. Last year, 2023 marked 10-year anniversary of this podcast, of me being out of dispatch, my partnership with Nina, and just so much more stuff. It has been crazy. Last year was fun. 2024 is already starting out to be superb. A lot of stuff going on. I'm going to be busy. I'm going to be really busy, but busy is a good thing. I wouldn't change it for the world. So it has been excellent. And again, I thank you all for it. I appreciate it. Make sure to look out for several things that are going to be coming up, whether it be appearances at conferences, but more importantly, classes that'll be going out and teaching. I have an 8-hour course that I do called Keep Broadcasting Your Message, and has so many different elements within it, but basically boils down to going back to the basics and communicating with each other, learning from each other, supporting each other, and just kind of bridging that gap between new folks, seasoned folks, all of it, and also how to recruit using the power of storytelling. Imagine Listening is also within those 8-hour classes. And also, Imagine Listening, Your Worst Day is Our Every Day is now available on Audible in just everywhere that you can get your audio books. It is available now. And I had the honor and privilege of being able to voice the book. It wasn't going to happen in the beginning, but it did end up happening, and I'm super proud of it. Make sure to check it out, and you can get it now, like I said, on Audible. All right. Woo. Now that all that stuff is out of the way, let's get started. I'm super excited for this episode and for my guest. We were already busting up in the beginning, so this is gonna be excellent. I always love episodes like this I always try to talk to the guests in the beginning. Um, just so that we can just kind of get that going and everything already. And when we start laughing right off the bat, like I'm all about it. I mean, we're going to be talking about some serious shit too, but there's always that comfort in humor and laughter as well, because laughing is good medicine. I'm a firm believer of that. So my guest today is Hannah, and she's a CTO with Jacksonville Sheriff's Office out of Florida. Yo, yo.
Hello.
Good morning. Good morning.
Morning.
So I don't know about you, but 2024 seems to be already. So it's January 8th for those who are watching and listening. We're recording this, and it is January 8th right now. It's about 10 in the morning. And just right off the bat, man, there's been so many crazy things happening. Like, what the hell happened in Miami?
I heard about that from my friend that lives in South Africa before I heard about it from the news.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, he messaged me at like 2:00 in the morning, like, hey, what's this? And I'm like, what? And so I actually had to figure it out from there.
Right. Yeah, I was up late as usual. So I was always working midnight shift, and it basically has stuck with me. But
Right.
my dumb ass internal clock will wake up at 6 in the morning. No matter how late I stay up, I wake up at 6 in the morning. So anyway, I was up late, and I was just scrolling through X, and there were like these reports, and I thought, "Oh, what the hell is going on there?" And it looked like it was a fight, but then people are like, "There's aliens all over the place." I was like, "What?" Like, no way.
Mhm.
I don't know. No idea. But I don't know. It just seems like a bunch of crazy
It-
stuff is already dropping for
right.
2024.
Right. I saw a meme yesterday, and it was, this year's been long, and the response to it was, it's only been a week. And it's fairly accurate.
Yeah, it feels like that sometimes, right? It's just like when you're taking a 911 call, and it feels like it was 15, 20 minutes, but in reality it was
Maybe
2
5
minutes.
to
Yeah,
whatever.
it's
Yeah.
crazy. Or when you get those moments as well, and I've mentioned it many times, when you're just busting ass, you're just working, just call after call after call,
Mhm.
and you look up at the clock thinking, "Damn, it's got to be halfway time to go home," and it's only been like 10 minutes.
Mhm.
What do you do? As you just keep going, right?
Right. Some shifts feel like they've taken years. Some shifts feel like they've gone by like that.
Exactly. Yeah. It goes back and forth, man.
Mhm.
It's something. But that's why I loved the job as well, because there was always something going on. You weren't just kind of sitting. I mean, okay, don't get me wrong. There are some times that you do get to just sit around maybe
Mhm.
for a little bit, but otherwise
Mhm.
it's just you're
Alright.
just going.
Yeah.
So for you, how did you get
Mhm.
started in public safety to begin with?
Um, so I was a student at UNF, and I was struggling with grades because we kept having a bunch of family losses and junk happening.
Mhm.
And I failed a semester. My mom and I got in this huge fight because she was letting me stay with her for free while I was at school, because if I was doing what I was supposed to, I could live with her for free. Got in this huge fight. I told her I didn't want to do it anymore. She told me, well, that's the only way you're going to find a job. And I was like, no, fuck you. Let me go find something. So I was sitting late that night, scrolling through, trying to find something to do. saw the job opening with the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office and was like, you know what? I think I can find something that I can help somebody with. So, ha.
And that's
And
how you landed into it?
mhm,
See, that's interesting where I can kind of relate in a way. So like for me, I ended up kind of getting into it with my dad. This is back in 2001. So,
mhm,
wow, that was a long time ago. Damn. Um, he and I were basically at each other's throats.
mhm,
And I needed a change. I needed to do something different. And I split. Like I left Michigan and went to visit my mom and my siblings and my grandmother in Florida, Central Florida,
mhm,
in a very small city called Frostproof that not a lot of people know of. And I that's where I got my start was
mhm,
but it had to do with that. I mean, there was other variables that I was dealing with as well, but it was mainly because we couldn't get along, and I did that really didn't have anywhere else to go, and I thought I needed to just split. I need to do something, and I'm
mhm.
glad I did because it led me to all of this. So,
Right.
in relation there, you end up having that with your mom and stuff. You end up finding this job and everything. What was that? Did you get a chance to go and sit in? Did you know anyone there at the sheriff's office that kind of brought you in, or you just kind of jumped in green?
I jumped in green, 100%. They had a typing test. The training lieutenant was there. They now call it training manager. I
Mhm.
don't like the switch, but she was there. She talked to us. She asked
Mhm.
us some questions. She asked about things like, "Have you ever been in a stressful situation where you've had to tell people what to do before?" And I was like, "Yeah," because we had that previous year at UNF, we had an active shooter scare. And I was the shift supervisor for the Starbucks on campus at the time. Literally, when it was happening, I was the one on duty. I was like,
What?
I get to clear up my lobby. Hmm.
Dang.
Hmm. I
So
was like, yeah, so I have this.
what was the response then from the person you telling them that?
She didn't really like push anything off then. I talked to her about it, I want to say several months later, and she started asking a bunch of questions about it and was like, well, what actually happened? And I'm like, she's like, this is actually one of the things that made me decide, yeah, you probably could do this job. And I was like, oh, cool.
Hey, well, I mean, that's awesome. You had that experience. You had an experience. And a lot
Mhm.
of times, people don't have, you know, and it's not that you have to have an experience, right? To be able to go through the process
Right.
and be a good candidate or whatever. But that definitely gave you a leg up on a lot of other folks because
Mhm.
you had that experience and you can bring some of that to what you're going to be doing. Now, working where you were working, do you feel like at all in any way it helped prepare you for certain things that you do now, dispatching?
Not really.
No? I was thinking, like, because, I mean, you're
No.
facing a lot of people, and they're coming in, and they're saying all these different things. You could have some, angry customers or whatever. So, I was in retail management before dispatch, and I feel like a lot of those encounters, um, kinda helped in a way prepare because I had that experience, and of course I wouldn't really think about it while I was, in training, but there were
Mhm.
some moments where I thought, "You know what? I dealt with this." People that but I was
Mhm.
face to face, but, now I'm listening to it and talking to people,
Mhm.
but the way I reacted, kind of helped from that experience back then to what I'm doing now over the phone.
Mhm. Well, I was dealing with a bunch of college students. I didn't really have a whole lot of angry people. So
Oh. They were just college students coming in because
get
they.
coffee because need study.
Yeah, it's true, yeah.
So
So you've got that you end up coming in with. What
mhm.
was so you had that typing test. Let's stop there really quick for a moment. And because if you remember it, how did it actually work out? And the reason I ask is because there was a typing test that I had to take at one of the agencies I was trying to get into at the
Mhm.
same time that I was trying to get into the agency that I ended up with. which was the county that I grew up in Southwest Michigan when I was towards the end of my dispatch
Mhm.
career. The typing test, you could only get 3 wrong. So you had to type, I believe it was 25 words per minute, and it was 4 paragraphs, I believe it
Mhm.
was. And so I'm typing because I'm a good typer, and I'm going in very confident. And then I make that first mistake, and I'm like, no, it's fine. I'll be all right. Continue typing, and then I go to backspace, and that was considered a mistake as well. So now I'm freaking out because I'm halfway through. I'm like, oh shit. Okay. Now I got to be careful. I went in confident. I shouldn't have been confident and cocky. So
Mhm.
now I'm hunt and peck typing to make sure that I'm doing it. And I passed it. It was fine.
Mhm.
What was your typing test like? What all did you have to do?
So they brought us into what they call the drill hall, which
Mhm.
is basically generally where they have all the news conferences. So if you've ever seen one of our news conferences with any of our sheriffs, it's usually that room. And they set up a bunch of laptops. And we got put at the laptops, and they put up this website, and you had to type 30 words a minute. They didn't really care about errors or anything like that. And
Yeah.
I basically doubled it.
You
So,
you doubled the word count that you were able to type?
uh-huh.
Hell yeah. Well, there you go. Even better
Yeah.
because while you're going through it, and especially because I think in some of the information that I read, you only take 911 calls, right?
Yes.
Snaps. So you have to be able to type really fast with
Mhm.
everything that is going on.
Especially since my city is very big on shootings, and love that.
Oh man.
Because
Yeah.
then you have to go as fast as
Good
you possibly can.
Lord. So so you double the count, which is awesome. So you've
Mhm.
got a bunch of different things that you've added in there where they're like,
Mhm.
you're here. You're in.
Right. So
So what about the interview portion of it? Was it just you and another person, or was it like
it
a
was
panel interview?
everyone that passed. So the typing test was the same day as the interview.
Mhm.
They had us go through a screening of questions to eliminate us. So people got eliminated for, I'm assuming, drug related questions because there were drug related questions in there. They picked a bunch of people up and away they went, and then never saw them again.
Oh, shit. Like, "You're gone."
Sounds
You
so
disappeared.
ominous. It just they were asked to leave the building. Um,
They had the gauntlet on, and they were just
right.
snap, and they were gone.
Yeah. Um, so we had that part. We had the typing test. My understanding is they have now added a hearing test where they play
Oh,
some of the 911 calls, and you have to try and tell them what you heard. That was not a thing when I went through. I only know that because of my fiance, because he came through after me, and a
yeah.
couple of my newer trainees. Um, and then we had the interview, and they broke us up into batches for that.
Mhm.
And it was like 4 or 5 of us at a time with the training lieutenant, the HR people. Yeah.
Damn.
And I had the lovely that one of the former people from my department,
Yeah.
she moved out to California and moved back, and she was reapplying. So I had that in my group. I was like, oh
Oh.
gosh, I have to compete with this.
Oh, man. So there's a lot of different things going on, a lot of different elements and stuff, and I feel like and I don't know if you thought about it or, think the same, but, like, for myself and in the other agency that I was going to or trying to get into rather,
Mhm.
their interview portion of it was an almost 3-hour interview, and it was a 6-panel interview where or 6-person panel interview rather, where it's just me on one side and 6 people on the other side, and they're just asking questions, asking questions.
So they were hurting really bad at the time.
Mhm.
So we didn't, I don't know if that made any difference or not,
Oh, that's possible.
because I didn't have very long of an interview. It wasn't super long of a day. Did all of that. I mean, it still was a very long hiring process
Yeah.
because obviously I have to do the background checks, polygraph, drug testing, psych eval, all of that. Um, and apparently my HR person that was supposed to tell me about it didn't tell me about it till by email a week before I was supposed to be there, and everyone else knew like a month in advance.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Were you freaking out?
I was like, oh cool. Great.
Can you imagine if it was the day before? Like, oh, by the way, this fell through the cracks. I'm sorry, but we need you here tomorrow for your.
Oh Lord. I would have mm, mm-mm. I would have lost all my marbles. I've been like, oh gosh, I got
I,
all the things. All the
right.
things.
Yeah, exactly. Because you don't know what what is going to be going on for one, and two, if you've thought about it, and this is what I was getting at as well, but I didn't say it at the moment. They're basically testing you to see if you can handle that pressure as well of the
Mhm,
amount of questions and you thinking on your feet, being able to respond
mhm,
quickly and how you're responding and stuff. And because that's the way it was for me. And I
mhm,
could tell, I'm like, damn, these guys, they're testing me to see if I can handle this pressure.
mhm.
Well, I'm gonna bring it to you.
Yeah.
Oh man. So you end up going through all of that.
Mhm.
And, so how long did you have to wait until you found out that you were actually hired?
Uh, the last thing I did prior to everything, so I did the drug test, the all of that. The last thing I did was the psych eval in July.
Mhm.
I got hired in October.
Oh, man.
So I thought by that point, I just thought I'd not gotten anything.
I know the feeling because when I was there in Central Florida, it was about 2 months before I heard anything, and because it was a small city, and I literally lived just down the road from the police department,
Mhm,
the chief showed up at my house to ask
mhm,
me if I still wanted the job, and I said, "Yes," but I had also said to him, I thought I screwed up the interview or something because I hadn't heard from you guys. It's been, this long.
mhm.
And he goes, oh, it's just a long
It's a very long
background
process.
process that we have to go through. And I said, oh, okay. So I just want to ask you this really quick before we move on, but um, the the drug test,
Mhm.
did they cut a chunk out of your hair? No.
P-test. P-test at a care spot.
Okay. So the small police department, that's the way it was as well. Same way with the central dispatch that
Mhm,
I ended up at, but the sheriff's office that I was trying to get into as well at the same time in a different county, I thought that's what they were going to do. I was like, "Where's the cup?" And he's like, "Oh, we don't do that." And I said, "Oh, you guys don't do a drug test at all?" And he goes, "No, no, no, we do." And then he pulls out this baggie and unpackages the scissors and a bunch of other stuff. I'm like, what are you doing? Like what's going on? He goes, oh, we have to take some a
hair.
patch, a little bit of hair out of you.
Mhm,
And I said, why? And he goes, because drugs stay in your follicles a lot longer. And I said,
mhm.
oh, okay. And I had just gotten a haircut and I told him that. And I said, you're probably not going to be able to get much. And he goes, oh, don't worry. He took a circle out of the side of my head.
Oh, no.
It was horrible, dude. But, what are you gonna do, you know? I
Yeah,
wanted the job, so I had to go ahead and do it.
right.
Jeez. That's one thing I'll never forget, but, you end up getting the job and
Mhm,
you go in. So, as you had said earlier, you're going in green or anything and everything. So, when you walk in, what
mhm.
is it that you see? Kind of paint that picture. What is it that you see when you're walking into dispatch that first time? And were you surprised by anything? Did anything catch you off guard?
So, the first day,
Mhm,
we had to go through security because it's in the main police headquarters where the sheriff's office actually is.
mhm,
So we go through security, all of that. We get taken up to the communications annex, which is not with the dispatch center itself. It's where the 911 administration people are, the people that keep all the records of all that stuff are the quality assurance people, the assistant chief that's over them is, and the training classroom is.
mhm,
We get shown that, we get shown the center. We don't actually go in the center, and then we get taken. I I want to say it was to a classroom that they had that was spare. Get shown a bunch of HR stuff, fill out some paperwork, and get our IDs, which I have still.
Yeah. The original one.
The original one with the
Very
nice
nice.
flag that they had at the time, because the flag they had was washed out.
Oh, no.
It's so pale, and I just look at people's badges now, and I'm like, eh.
I know. It's like, you're so sad.
It's so sad. And then like the green, it's supposed to symbol that you're a civilian, and it's gotten so much lighter on the new one too. I'm like, yeah. Nasty shade of green is.
I know. It's like, this is an original. I know what it is.
Well, no, it's not even the original. It's a nasty shade of green, and I don't like it.
Oh, it's like, why is this not green? Like, I don't know.
It's so pale. It almost looks yellow. Why?
Oof.
But so we go through all of that. So my hiring experience was very unique to the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, because at the same time they were changing CADs. So we went from whatever CAD that they had. I don't remember what it's called, because I never trained on it. I never got to use it. I just got to see it briefly when we went in the center a couple of times, to the CAD we use now, which is, I want to say, Motorola P1. And so there was like a 2-week period of we got extra training time because they were switching over the CAD and they were still training the current people on that CAD. So I got extra stuff. We got to talk to traffic homicide, got to see pictures and stuff from them. We got to see pictures from regular homicide. We got to tour the property room. We got all kinds of different tours that people don't normally get.
Wait a minute. This is day one?
This was like the first week.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, day one kind of like
paperwork.
Paperwork, and that's it. Paperwork, You got your badge and went home. That's it.
Oh, okay.
The first
I was going to say,
though,
damn.
All of this other stuff. You started like getting your signal sheets. You started getting your stuff. We started going on the tours. We started talking to the different departments. By the end of the second week, we had like quizzes on the stuff. We had more departments come in and talk to us. I want to say special assault came and talked to us by that point. I can't remember all the different departments or everything, but we also got to tour, because Jacksonville, because it's so large, we separate police and fire and rescue communications. So we got to go to our Fire Rescue's communication center.
Oh, man.
And not many JSO people get to do that. So, yeah, it was an interesting first couple of weeks.
I was going to say, there's a lot of stuff that you get put into, but that's awesome, too, because you get to experience that and see how it is in each spot. I
think it helped, like, understanding stuff, because, like, for the property room, it has everything. There's a case back from when I was like 3, a murder case that's been in the news a bajillion times. I think she made national news too. The murder of Maddie Clifton.
I've probably seen a Dateline or something on this person.
Her cross the street neighbor killed her and shoved her under his waterbed. His waterbed is in the property room.
Oh, man.
And so we got to learn, because we saw that, we were like, why is this here? It was solved ages ago. And so they explained, well, these type of cases will have property that we have to keep for forever. It can't go away because it was a murder. And I was like, oh, so you can't get rid of that ever. And they're like, nope, forever and a day.
Wow.
Like, oh, wow. So anything that involves a murder or anything like that, I learned, hey, you're not getting that back. And I've had people call in and they're like, hey, I would like to know about this. And I look and it was involved in something like that. Like it's a car, they're trying to figure out about their car. And I look at it and it was involved in a homicide. And I'm like, hey, you're probably not getting that back.
Yeah.
Here, talk to them. Because I don't want to be the one to tell you that you're not getting your car back. Talk to homicide.
Yeah, exactly. We will transfer you on to whatever it is. Now, you said you were how old when this happened?
When Maddie Clifton died?
Yeah, when this whole
Uh,
thing.
I think I was 3. I remember because she lived, what, a block or 2 away from me? I
Oh, no
remember,
way.
yeah, they were putting her picture everywhere at the football stadium. We were searching the neighborhood, everything.
Wow.
I don't
So
fully remember it, but I do remember, I somewhat remember the searching because they'd go through our yard because we had a creek in our backyard. And they were trying to see if she maybe wandered there because she was missing for the longest.
holy moly. Yeah,
Mhm,
I pulled it up over here. Those who are
mhm.
watching the actual video, you'll probably see it got brighter on my face because my monitor is right here. So this happened in 1998. I was
I was like 3 or
17.
4.
I was 17. I was a junior in high school.
Yeah.
Oh, damn, I am old. But looking at this, it does look this stuff does look familiar. I'm gonna have to look
Mhm.
into this. But that's interesting also to know that, that information remains. They
Mhm.
end up keeping all of that
Yep,
stuff, which
and,
is probably a good thing, right?
like the body cams, because we get the
Mhm.
checkbacks of that for on our, CAD. The body cam says EC99. It just means it's being kept forever.
Damn.
Mhm.
Well, there you go. I mean, it's it's and again, it's
Some
probably a
things
good
will be
thing.
kept, like, I wanna say BC is like a I want to say it's like a week or something or
Mhm.
other. It's like it's a shorter period than there's BC1, which is a year, BC7, which is 7 years, BC9, which is 9 years, and so on to 99.
Oh, interesting. Gotcha. Okay. So you end up going through, like you said, it was a
Mhm,
very interesting first couple of weeks and everything.
mhm.
While you're going through all of this, was there anything that surprised you? Like, oh, I didn't think it was going to be like this, or you had a view, a different view of whatever it was that you were experiencing at that time.
Not fully. The
Mhm.
the only thing I can really think of that actually ever really surprised me was actually in the classroom. Like once we had actually gotten to that part,
Mhm.
because we went through the test because they make you test I want to say 6 different times on the 10 codes and signals that they use. And then you have to score whatever or higher. I always scored in the 90s, so I was fine.
Yes.
Um, right. And after all of that, they have a point where, or had, because they've changed the training department because it's a new manager, lieutenant
Mhm.
now, and she's changed the recipe completely. Um, at the time, they had one of the supervisors, the training supervisor, so the training sergeant, sit and listen with you while you took your first like 4 or 5 calls. And the very first one that like the very first call I can actually remember. I don't know which order it was somewhere in there. I
Mhm.
know I had one that my CAD completely crashed. And so she had to take it over. So I had to get an additional one on top of that. And then the only one that I can remember besides that, I had a little kid that got their arm stuck in a car wheel and was screaming bloody murder while mom was on the phone with me. And I was like, oh shit.
Oh, what?
Mhm. She apparently dropped something, was trying to reach through, got her arm stuck in the car, and was trying to pull it out and couldn't, and was screaming because it was pinning her.
Oh man. And this is one of your first early on calls that you're
Like,
getting.
this
What a
is the
way
first call that
to
I
jump
actually,
in.
like, handled.
Right. Yeah. What? It seems like, and out of all these years that I've done this podcast, it seems like a lot of people, that's how they get thrown in to.
Baptism by fire.
Yes. Exactly.
Mhm,
Yeah, you get thrown in and everything, and, you work through it. I mean, one of
mhm,
my early trainers when I was working in Florida there at the PD, he told me that very first night. So, I told you that the chief showed up to ask me
mhm.
if I still wanted the job, and I said yes. I asked him when I started, thinking it was gonna be the following week. I started that night. Yeah, dude, it was that night. He
Oh,
goes,
Lord.
"You come in tonight at 10 then." And I said, I'm sorry, what?" And he goes, "You want the job, don't you?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I just I wasn't expecting on going in tonight. I'll be there. And so, my trainer shows me everything,
Mhm.
and he takes his first 911 call, and I'm watching him do this like I'm watching National Geographic or something. I'm just in
Mhm.
awe of him taking this call, and he's finished with it, and I even tell him like, "Good job, like that was great." And he goes, "Okay, well, you're next." Huh? He goes, "You're next." And I said, "Are you for real? Like, there's nothing else? There's no other training?" And he goes, "Look, you learn by working, by taking these
Mhm.
calls. It's the only way you're going to learn." Now, the following week, there was a 40-hour beginner's dispatch, like, crash
Mhm.
course that I took,
Mhm.
but I was working straight up until that training.
Mhm. Yeah. I think they did the class thing so that we could be able to understand the codes and also that we could put it into the CAD
Yeah.
because otherwise you're not going to get anything to do with the way the Motorola CAD works because you have to have a signal. And I think that's why they did the training class first. Plus, I think the state of Florida requires 400 hours or 300 hours of classroom time now.
Oh, man. That is a
Yeah.
lot. Yeah, I forget. Yeah, in Florida, there's a lot of time that you
Yeah.
need before you actually go
Yeah.
into that. Yeah.
Because of the stuff that happened with Denise Amber Lee
Right, yes, exactly.
and
Um,
state certification and all that. Lovely.
yeah. So, yeah, there's a lot of stuff that goes into it and everything. Now, what year was this again that you were jumping
I
into this profession?
started, my actual hire date is October 7th of 2019.
Okay, okay, October 7th, 2019. You're going through training, and how long did your training last?
So the classroom is, I want to say about 6-ish weeks.
Mhm.
But I got an extra 2 on that, so it was like 8 because of the change to the CAD. We got thrown out onto the floor end of November, beginning of December. I got with my first training officer, Candace. Um, Went through the first phase of training, so that was sitting buddy buddy with her. Got moved to phase 2 in, I want to say January. Oh, might have been end of December, beginning of January, somewhere around there. Um, that January, my uncle actually committed suicide,
Mm.
and I went in,
My
and the now
condolences.
training lieutenant saw me, and she's like, "Duncan, what are you doing here?" And I'm like, "I didn't know what else to do." Because I had called in the day it happened, and I was like, "Hey, this happened. I don't," because it was the first time I never had a loss while working.
Right.
And I was like, I don't know what to do with this information. And I was like, what do I do? And they were like, I'll let everyone know. So I went in that following work day or like
Mhm.
whatever the next work day was. And why are you here? I was like, I don't know. I didn't know what else to do with myself. My trainer is like, let me know if you need anything, blah, blah, blah. Cause they prepped her because everything. So we go through the day. We get to our first suicidal person. I handle the call. I do what I'm supposed to.
Mhm.
And we were on our old phone system at the time, so she could hear me all the time. And I just, Candace, I can't do it. Not today. And she says, okay, go let them know. And then I went and I told the lieutenant, and she was like, okay, don't come back this weekend. Come back the following day, which following work day, which was, if it was the weekend, should have been Wednesday. So don't come back till Wednesday. And I said, okay. Came back Wednesday and went from there. It just, something about that first one after that, I couldn't do it then. It was too fresh.
Right, yes.
But they were very good about it too, because like they check on you, make sure that you were fine if you did have something like that happen, which I want to say not long after that, the training sergeant that was in charge of the classroom when I went through actually passed away.
Oh, man.
Yeah, and I remember seeing the assistant chief come in, and I'm like, it's midnight. Why are you here? You're not here this time frame. Why are you here? And she starts going around to everybody, and everybody starts getting these weird looks on their face. And I'm like, what's going on? And she finally gets to me and Candace, and she tells us that um, Sergeant Barber had passed. And I was like, excuse me, what? You want to back up a couple of steps and repeat that?
Oh,
And so that was like the first instance I ever had with anyone in the sheriff's office or like officer, dispatcher, whoever passing. And just the difference that it made that night between the officers and us was weird. It was like this almost eerie aura around everybody.
yeah.
Because like you could tell everyone was muted. The officers were muted because apparently they were told to. I just don't know what all they were told. Obviously, I'm not an officer.
Yeah.
That happened during training. And then right after that, like a week or two after that, COVID started. And I got yanked.
You got what?
Yanked. They put us, all of us on that were training, on administrative leave and said, no,
Wait,
you
what?
don't get to be here. Yeah.
Oh man. So wait a minute.
So
So what happened after? Okay, hold on. You've got all of this stuff that's going on, which again,
mhm.
as I said a moment ago, like condolences, just like on
Thank you.
all of it. And I can't imagine, for one, at least this part I can, just like the training piece. There's a lot that goes into it. There's a lot of stuff you got to learn when you start jumping into taking calls and such. It's a lot to take in, and as you said, you had a good support system, which is awesome, because in some
Mhm.
places you don't really have that. They just go on to the next one, and you
Right.
don't know who's dealing with what or whichever.
Right.
And so it's awesome that you had that support going through. So you're still dealing with stuff. You have this with, this other person in your life that ends up passing. Everybody finds out, and like you said, there's this odd aura, this weirdness.
Mhm.
Basically, you all know what has happened, but
Mhm.
you don't know how to really deal with it with each other.
Right.
And so
Because
you're
nobody knows how to process it at the
right.
moment.
Yeah, exactly. So you're just going with the motions, and
Mhm.
then time passes a little bit, and then COVID kicks in.
Mhm.
Everything goes to hell. World shuts
Mhm.
down,
Right.
and everyone starts talking about, essential, workers and such that are going through and doing all these different things.
Mhm.
How long were you on leave then during that time? Like, I can't imagine going through all of that and then just stop, and you're like, what do I do
Somewhere
now?"
like around February or March, I want to say
Mhm.
February. I want to say it was in February. We got put on administrative leave. Went through, I don't know what point in February. I think it was roughly around the middle. All of March we were on administrative leave. Um I want to say it was all of April and we came back in May.
Man,
And we had to go back through a re-classroom
well, I can imagine, yeah, being
just to
gone
make
that
sure you didn't
long.
forget anything and to check you out. Some people went, we call it 10-8 or solo, from that classroom. Some people, like myself, did not, just because they were like, you might need a little bit more time with the training officer.
Yeah.
I got taken from Candace and given to Avery. And I was with him like a month and then I actually got COVID.
Oh, no.
So I was out for a month because I had like 104-degree fever for a whole month. Came back.
Dude, your
Um,
brain was, like, cooking, basically.
right.
Jeez.
hmm So we did the thing in May. I had got COVID in June, came back in July, did a couple more months of training with him because I got really rusty over that June, my brain cooking.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they were like, you're not. I went solo at the end of August, beginning of September of 2020.
Jeez.
It took way longer than it should have.
Right. Yeah. lot of different circumstances,
Mhm.
a lot of yeah, wow. What a way
Yeah,
to start
right.
in
And
this profession.
I'm kind of glad that no one else has to go through that same like shitstorm.
Right. Yeah, yeah, I mean, you're
Because I
going
don't
through.
know. I don't know how anyone else would.
I can only imagine that the reason that you were all sent home too is because they needed to figure out a plan going forward on what they were going to be doing specifically for the department. And and I say this because there are a lot of directors that I know, a lot of friends of mine who they had to move, half of their center into like a trailer,
Mhm,
and they had them working in two different spots just in
mhm,
case one of them went down because of COVID. They still had their backup and everything. So for all of you who were, just getting into it and training and doing all this other stuff, they probably were in panic mode in a sense. And we're like, we've got to go through some planning. We've got to figure this stuff out and bring them
mhm.
in. And oh man.
So we do have a backup center. They
Hmm.
did not touch it, as far as I'm aware.
Oh,
They took over the classroom that we were training in originally, to increase social distancing. You weren't allowed to sit a console next to each other, so there had to be a console between you. They took the tactical room that was used for tech situations and put two of the zones, because we at the time we were zones
yeah.
in there, and kind of spread it out just a little bit and used a bunch of the tech consoles to just absorb the space that needed to be between the we have 6 zones and one investigative dispatcher, and NCIC has their own room. So basically, to absorb that space that was needed, they took over the tech consoles. And if somebody had a tech situation, oh, well, you're going to go into this space. We're supposed to be wearing masks anyway,
Oh, geez. I
which, oh my God, that was horrible. Having to wear masks
I was gonna
during
ask
that. Mm-mm.
what that was actually like, because obviously I'm not in there. I'm not within the trenches of 911 anymore. I've thought about going back part-time or or something, but what what exactly was that like? I mean, how muffled does that make your voice as well when talking on the phone or the radio?
It's horrible. Honestly, when I first went back, I was doing both dispatch and 911. And basically, when I went solo in that September, I got told, hey, you'd have a month to go solo in dispatch. And I was still phase one for that. And I was like, no, I'll come back to that. I'll come back to that.
Oh, man.
I'm still in the I'll come back to that part. I've asked, but because they're trying to get people in, they haven't really gotten to me because I'm here and I'm not going anywhere. So,
There you go.
right. Um, so when I was on the radio, they could not understand me. They could not. I had to get one of those little plastic face shields. That didn't help much better.
Oh, man.
It was so hard to understand them. And
And you're
once I
probably
went,
wearing a headset too, right?
mhm. Oh, if I had my purse, I could show you my headset, but it's
Oh,
in my
okay.
bedroom. I was like, I have it. Oh, wait, no, it's in my room. But no, we have a headset. The microphone's like right about here. And so it's cloth right about here. And you're like trying to talk to people. And no, it doesn't really work very well. So once I went solo and was sitting by myself, it basically sat down here. And anytime anyone approached, it went up
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah. Well,
just so that they
plus
could hear me better.
breathing and everything as well. Like I have minor asthma. So, I
Mhm.
mean, I've only I can count on my hand probably only 2 in my entire life. No, please no jinx. I'm not jinxing myself here, but I've only had like 2 issues where I needed to actually hit my inhaler,
Mhm.
but just like walking around normally or whatever with the mask on, or especially when flying. on the
Mhm.
plane with the mask. That
Oh, yeah.
sucked. But I can't imagine sitting there for 8 or 12 hours, whichever you have.
Well,
And so there you go, 12, and having to be like that the whole time and also
yeah.
taking calls and such.
Mhm. And ever so lovely if you get made to stay over because they do have stayover days. It's an additional 4 hours. So being there 16 hours with the mask on your face, talking on the phone is also lovely.
Oh, how does it feel when you end up leaving and you finally take it off?
It's like when you come home after a long day, taking off your shoes. Or women will understand this taking off your bra.
There you go. That's amazing. So was not expecting that. That was good. That's a good description because
Mhm.
no, I know what you mean, for the taking off the shoes. It's like that moment of just, ah,
Ah.
yeah. Oh my god. So you're going through all of this in the beginning, and I've
Mhm.
asked this before to people, and I'm going to ask you as well.
Mhm.
Around when did you have that moment where you felt like, well, two things. The moment when you felt like you were where you were supposed to be, but also that you really had a handle on what you're doing. Like for me, it was about 2.5, 3 years when I felt like I fully have got this. Of course, you're always learning, right? You're learning things every day, but that's when I felt the most like, yeah, I've got this. Like, this is good.
Um, so it was a while after I went solo.
Hmm.
When I actually felt like I had it. There was a shooting that we had at a club, and it was still technically an active shooter.
Hmm.
And I had a lady on my line, and she had one of the victims in her lap, but she could also see the shooter. And so far, all we had was somebody shooting. There were no descriptions. There was no nothing. We had no idea what the shooter looked like.
Hmm.
I had to bully her almost into giving me a shooter description. She yelled at me, "What the fuck does it matter?" And I'm like, because he's still shooting.
Right. Exactly.
I almost had to bully it out of her. And once I actually got a description, and I was the only person out of however many people we had working that night on the phones that got a description, I kind of felt like, hey, you know what? I can do this.
No, that's good because you need a firm voice
Mhm,
to get the information out of people sometimes. I mean, and it's not just that. I mean, think about a lot of things maybe that you've, seen in the news, or for myself, people that I've spoken to where there are, people who are finding others that are just, laying there, or they find them, in a car crash or something, and you have to ask, like, if, and of course you have to say, if you feel safe enough, right? Cover your own ass. If you feel safe enough, can you check on that person? Or but
mhm,
also, I've seen it in the news too, where you've got parents who they don't want to do anything further for even their kids or friends or family, and you have to be like, in order for you to help them, you have to help me help you.
mhm,
We can do this together, and hopefully it has a good outcome, but you have to have that firm voice or
mhm.
things will go sideways.
Yeah. The most common phrase I'll do is, I can help you. I just need you to help me first.
There you go. Yeah.
Because, like, especially if they don't know their address or like where they are, because obviously 911's not perfect. You're not going to get an exact location unless it's a landline. And even then, if it's a voice over internet protocol landline, you're getting a, well, this is where the internet says it is. It's not actually 100% here because it could have been moved and it just didn't update that move.
Right. What a what a
Yeah.
profession. Like,
Yeah. And like, oh, and heaven forbid somebody calls from a 911 only line.
oh, yes.
No.
Yeah.
And
And
they
and
don't know
for,
where they are. Well, I have your cell tower. That's it.
yeah, exactly. For those who are watching and listening right now, these are um NSI phones. They're non-service initialized phones. So these are cell phones that have no service. However, as a safety feature, they can still call 911. But
They're
when you
required to.
call, right, yeah, they're required. It's law. They have to be able to call in. But when they call in, we don't there's no location. So
You get
it's
the cell
it's
tower. That's
right.
it.
You get the cell tower, and I think there is between, and it's a big jump, but it's between, it's almost 12-mile radius from that tower. At least that's what it was years back when I was in dispatch, like 10 years ago. Now it's probably different because if you get a phase 2, it's
Yeah.
like
Yeah,
3.5 mile
I'll
radius.
occasionally get phase 2 ones out of it if I sit there and I'm like, refresh, 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 refresh.
Yeah, yes.
I've
So
had so many of those stupid things.
it's hard. So if you are watching and listening, and you let your child play with a phone that has no service, they can still call 911. Just remember that.
Mhm.
Before before the batteries were soldered into cell phones and everything, you could just simply take the battery out and, let your kid play on the phone. Now,
Mhm.
no, it's not like that anymore.
No, we get kids calling all the time.
Right. And
All the time.
and
It
sometimes they say some gnarly shit and you got to find
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, or, like, they'll call in technically be a swatting call at this point, like, because 'cause they'll say, "My mom's dead," or some bullshit story that's not
Right.
true, but we still have to go check it out because they said it happened. And what if we're like, oh, it's just a kid playing on the phone, and then it actually is?
That's the moment where you end up on the news. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Because we don't know that that kid's not telling us the truth and they're
Right.
playing on the phone and now wasting our resources.
Exactly. Yeah. I posted something over the holidays where
Mhm.
I talked about something similar to that, where this kid was playing on the phone, and it
Mhm.
was one of those that only had service to call 911.
Mhm.
But what we were doing was whenever we got a call, we ended up adding it to our database, our in-house
Mhm.
computer, and we added a bunch of notes. And if we were able to find any other information, we would add it there. And this
Mhm.
one specific phone number, we actually had some extra information. So we were
Mhm.
able to track the kid down, and uh and we found him. The officer ended up going out there, and when the officer pulls up, he goes, "Central, I'm pretty sure that this is the right residence. There was a child, there was a kid who was looking outside the living room window and saw me and ran." And it turned out it was the phone. 911 went off. I picked it up and I looked up, and I said, "911, where's your emergency?" And I hear the officer and he goes, "Ricardo, is this the phone number this kid was calling from?" And I said, "Yes." And he goes, "Okay, hold on a minute." And then the kid got on the phone and apologized.
Oh, that's lovely.
Yeah,
I
well,
wish they would make them apologize here.
while mom was in the background saying, "I told you not to play with the phone," and the kid's like, "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." And then the officer gets on the phone and he says, "Was was this kid talking to your partner as well?" And I said, "Yes." And he goes, "Put her on the phone." So apologize to her as well. Well, here's the thing though. I posted this clip on YouTube as a short
Mhm.
because I thought it was funny.
Mhm.
And someone responded saying, "Oh, what a great waste of, or great use of our tax dollars," or something like that. And I wanted to respond. I haven't yet. I might, but I wanted to respond with kind of what we were saying, and saying, "Look, it
It
might be a waste, but it's that
it's
one
already a
moment."
waste.
Right, yeah. It'll be that moment where you don't send someone, and someone like you is gonna say the same thing because we didn't send somebody out. So it's damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Right.
But I would rather send someone out just to make sure than not, and
Right.
something really bad happen.
Right. Like, oh Lord, it was a while back. We were all at the backup center because we were in the middle of renovating our normal center.
Mhm,
And we had this dude call. I didn't take it. I remember hearing the person that did take it go basically, what the fuck
mhm.
afterwards. She had a dude call. He said that he got into a fight with his mom, killed her, and shoved her in the freezer. Which,
What?
yeah, a lot of us would be like, oh, that almost sounds like a swatting call. That's probably not something, right? I can still remember when the person who was working that zone at the time, she had the officer come up and she goes, "What?" Plays it back so that everyone can hear it because the playback, instead of over in the ears like it normally does,
Yeah.
just goes over a speaker. And we hear HQ, whatever his call sign was, it's bona fide. And we're all just like, "Excuse me? What?"
Oh
So,
man.
yeah, we get stuff where, hello, Oakley. Sorry, dog just put his head on me. We get stuff where it's legitimately a thing and where you would have thought it was someone playing on the phone or someone messing with you or a swatting call or something. And it will actually legitimately be a thing.
Yeah. And,
And
and those are the things too that I used, and I still do, but with friends and family, they would ask questions about certain things, and sometimes I wouldn't give them all the information, but
mhm,
I would tell them a few things, and they would go, "Are you for real?" Say,
mhm.
"Yeah," and they would say, "How do you do that job? Like, how do you?" I'm like, like, I
Yeah.
laugh through it. No, I'm just playing. Like, some stuff you have to, kinda have a
You
dark
have to
humor
have the
with, of
dark
course.
humor.
Yeah, you have to have that or else you're not gonna make it through, but, I
Mhm.
would tell them, "This is the profession I chose. This is what I do, man. Like, I feel like I'm meant to be here. Like,
Right.
this was meant for me." You go through it and all, and excuse me, but some stuff for real, like others who are not in this profession, who have never been in a profession where you're dealing with stuff like this, they don't know. They think it's just, I'm like, it's not like on TV. If you call, it's not like on a TV show where I'm going to pinpoint exactly where you're at and I can see you. No.
You get a generalized location.
Right.
There are some things like Rapid SOS that make it a little bit better.
Yes.
But even then, it still has an uncertainty radius and a percentage of how certain it is, and it's not 100%. It's never 100%.
Yeah. And I remember before that came out,
Mhm,
and I would be taking phone calls and stuff, and if we couldn't find someone, if there was especially if it was one of those phones that only had service to call 911
mhm.
and there was
And you
no
can't call back.
location, right, you can't call them back or anything like that, you end up being left with what happened to that person. There's no closure, and
Right.
that eventually depending on the situation or anything like that, it will eat at you. I know there were a lot of calls that I was taking, and they were freaky calls, man, and, they were calling on a phone like that. They couldn't tell me their location. They didn't know where they were at. The, cell phone companies, there was no way to really ping them or anything,
Mhm.
and they end up hanging up, or the battery dies, and you're like, "There's nothing else I can do. There's nothing you can
Right.
do."
Right. I actually had one where a guy was calling on a 911 only line, so you can't use Rapid SOS or anything like that.
Mhm.
And he said that he had a broken leg, and I can't remember what he said happened with it. And I had his generalized location because I finally got it to a phase two ping, and it was in the middle of some woods. So I had to sit there on the phone with this guy, trying to listen for sirens or the helicopter or something that would tell me roughly where he was for forever. It basically came to up to shift change. I had to flag down one of the sergeants and was like, "Hey, look, I'm stuck on this call. Somebody needs to take over the call." And I think they were on the phone with him another like hour or 2 hours before they found him.
Oh, man. That I
If
can
his
definitely relate to you. Yes.
if his phone had died, I don't know that we would have found him. So same principle. Like we wouldn't. There's a lot of times where we just have to listen
Yeah, exactly, and
to be
and
able to
hope
find people.
hope that there's a good outcome. I had something similar where so the area where I was working, in dispatch, there was a lot of state game area, and somebody
Mhm,
got lost, and there was no way to ping exactly where they were at, and
mhm,
it's a huge game area, and it
mhm,
did the same thing. It was getting towards the evening, and, there were people out in the area he was trying to describe, and the officer's like, "I found this person's car." Like, "Okay, good. We're on the right track." So then it was, "Do you see lights? Do you hear sirens?" And, go towards that, and I remember the person's like, "I think that's the echo." So then I'm like, "Oh." The echo. Okay. And you keep going, and they did eventually find the person,
Mhm.
but during that time, man, your heart's just like,
Yeah, and, like, with my dude, he couldn't get up and go anywhere because he broke his leg. So
oh
it's not
man,
like he could even go, like, try and find the noises.
right.
He's stuck where
Jeez.
he is,
Oh, that is, yeah, that makes it even worse. You've
right?
got something else that's going on like
Right,
that.
and then my training lieutenant, she told me a story where she had a guy who his friend got shot, and they were in the middle of a field, and he refused to get up and exit the field to go find a street sign so we could find them. So they had to send the helicopter, and because it took so long to find him, his friend died.
Jeez.
Like,
And
just because he was so scared that the people that shot his friend would come back. And I mean, I get
right.
that,
Yeah.
but also you're hurting your friend at the same point. So it's like, which is, it still sucks either way, but
Right. Yeah.
it's just like
It's
you're in a catch-22, dude. You're gonna let your friend die, or you could possibly get shot yourself and die too. What do you do?
right. Yeah, what are you gonna
And
do?
it's not like we can force him to do something he doesn't feel safe to do either.
Exactly. Yeah, you basically have to respond with whatever you feel comfortable doing with the
Right.
situation that's going on right now that you're in, that your
Mhm.
friend's in,
Mhm.
whatever you feel comfortable. It's just like, I'll say this really quick before we move on to the next and towards the, wrapping up of this episode, which has been
Mhm.
awesome to have you on here and chatting with you. But I remember taking phone calls where people would say, "There's someone on my property. I need permission to shoot the
Oh,
person." And I'm like,
Lord have
"I'm
mercy.
not giving you that permission.
No.
No,
No.
I'm not giving you
No.
permission." And they would say, "Well, what do I do?" And the response would be, and
That's up
this
to
is what
you.
I was told, "You have the right to protect yourself, your family, and your property. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like I can't tell you what
Now
you
you
can
make the
or cannot
decision."
do.
Right.
The
Yeah, now
decision
you
is
make the
on
decision.
you.
Yeah, because all it ends up being is if you end up saying, "Yeah, go for it," you're
You're
recorded on a
liable.
recorded line, and now you're the person who told them to do it, and you're fucked.
Mhm. And
No,
liable for everything that happens. No.
exactly, right.
No.
Nope. You have the right to protect yourself, your property, and your family.
Mhm.
Just know we have people going out to you as fast as possible. So
Yeah.
there's and then all you can do is listen and try
Mhm.
to convince the person to just stay separated or whatever that's going on.
Right. I actually
Ugh.
had one of those where I actually met my fiance through my job. I
Mhm,
was his training officer. Um, and we had this guy who ended up being crazy,
mhm,
but he was insisting somebody was breaking into his house. And we were trying to get him to talk to us, trying to get him to keep talking to us, whatever. We're telling him, hey, they're on their way, whatever. And all of a sudden, we hear what sounds like this tinkling of like metal. And I look at him, Ryan, my fiance, and he and I looking at each other. And he's like, that sounds like shotgun shells being dumped out. And I'm like, oh, great. And all of a sudden we hear the of a shotgun, and we're like, oh shit. And then
oh,
he goes, look here, motherfucker, and then walks away from the phone completely. And so we're just sitting there listening, like, where's the gunshot? Where's the gunshot? I'm expecting to hear a gunshot, and they get there, and he's batshit crazy, and no one was there.
oh, dude.
So you'll get stuff like that too.
Right, yes. Oh my lord. You reminded me of, there was something similar that happened where this guy, he's like, My neighbor came home and he caught his wife with another man, and he took them by, gunpoint, and they're in the shed." And I'm taking this call, and everyone is hauling ass out there, like SWAT, like everything. They're starting
Mhm,
to position because of what's going down. And then the
mhm,
guy says, "I hear gunshots. I hear gunshots." We're like, "Oh my God." And he goes, "My neighbor just went back to his house." So the guy I was talking to ends up going outside of the house for whatever reason. Officers get a hold of him, bring him to where they're at. They want me to call the neighbor to see if I can get a hold of him to get him to come out, or to see what state of mind he's in and possibly come out with his hands up or whatever. I'm like, okay. I call and I'm like, sir, we've got a situation that's going on. He's like, I just got home from work. I'm like, okay, where's your wife? And he goes, what wife? And I said, excuse me. And he goes, I'm not married. I live alone. And so I'm relaying this, and they're like, see if he can come out, just have his hands up. So I'm telling him, right, all of this stuff. He opens the door and he's like, what the hell's going on? And you hear everyone like, get down, get down. I'm like, oh my God. And so the phone drops, they get a hold of him. Everything ends up being fine
Mhm.
because the guy I was originally talking to was tripping on acid. He was hallucinating the whole thing.
Lovely.
Dude, never happened.
I love that. I mean, that's better than the call that I had where I had to listen for somebody to get out of a location. I had these kids call because their dad was both homicidal and suicidal, and they had locked themselves in their bedroom and were hiding in the closet. I was on the phone for this for an hour and 30 minutes roughly,
Oh man.
sitting there with these kids terrified out of their mind because their dad was threatening both to kill his girlfriend and then himself. I ended up having to sit there and listen to them crawl out the window and finally get to an officer.
Were you able to breathe after that? I'm holding
Yeah,
my
no,
breath listening to you
I took
say
a
this.
good I took a good walk afterwards because it was one of those like emotionally charged ones where you just
Right.
I need a minute.
Oh man.
Mhm,
So you mentioned this, which I'm glad as well. I'll say this right off the bat. I'm glad that you had a chance to get up and go just
mhm.
kind of decompress, right? Because a lot of times you just go to the next one.
Right,
Sometimes you don't always get that chance. And that's what
right,
I tell people. They're like, why don't you just get up and walk out? I was like,
right. No,
what? Like you can't.
I specifically asked. I waked down one of the sergeants. I was like, "Hey, can I please? I need a minute." And they were like, "Go ahead, we got you."
See,
So,
that is awesome right there. And what I want to bring up before I ask you the last question that I want to ask you is, and as long as you're comfortable as well,
mhm,
a call that sticks with you because you got I believe you got a letter of recommendation, right, or commendation on
mhm.
this. So if you could share this story as well, please.
Okay, so this one hit the news.
Hmm.
I there is actually a news article for it if you want to look it up. It's a police chase that ended in the death of a 5-year-old little girl um, in Jacksonville, Florida. I get a call from this lady, and she tells me that she has full custody of her niece, and her niece has just been kidnapped. And because of um, a previous case, anytime someone says the word kidnap, we immediately have to have kidnap. We can't. Well, why? Well, what makes you say they're kidnapped? Whatever. Unless like we have like actual something like there's a custody dispute and you can tell it's a custody dispute between a mom and a dad. Like that's the only time we're allowed to like pick at it.
Hmm.
So she goes, I have full custody. Her mom just took her, and her mom is not supposed to be anywhere near her without supervised visitation. And I'm like, shit. So I get the address out of her. I send the call for a kidnapping just occurred. And I start asking a bunch of questions. I ask drinking, drugs, weapons, find out that the suspect's pregnant at the time that this all is happening. I find out her clothing description. I get the girl's description. I get what kind of vehicle they're in. I actually got the tag number for the car she was in because it belonged to both the aunt and the mom's mom. So the grandma in the situation
Hmm.
belonged to her. Um, I get like all the stuff. Like I went above what I normally ask with this call, like because I got so invested with the fact that it was a little girl, and mom apparently had mental health problems and did not need to have her. While I'm still on the phone with the aunt, one of my officers gets up behind her, sees the car, and is like, hey, I'm behind the car. And I see that update come through. I'm like, cool. And at that point, I'm like, oh, I've got officers coming to you. They're lights, sirens, whatever. I get her name, her phone number, disconnect, and I leave that call up for the rest of the night. Because obviously, I want to know what happened to the little girl.
Right.
Because I am now invested. And it took from the top side of our county, our city, up near like Nassau County, which is the tippity top, not too far from there, all the way down 95, almost to St. Johns County. It was a 30-mile chase.
What?
Mm-hmm. And the zone dispatcher moved it to a situation. So they got their own tactical dispatcher to keep track of everything because we had, I want to say at that point, District 6. It's now District 6. It was Zone 6, Zone 1, and Zone 3 that all got involved in this pursuit because she went through all of those areas. So she started in District Zone 6, went through Zone 1, went through and ended in Zone 3. So we have units from everywhere going, hey, hi, this is mine now. And there's I-95 and I-295 interchange. And she initially was like going like she was going to continue south into St. Johns County, but then last minute decided she's going to go on to 295 and doesn't make the turn and crashes into a pond. And she ended up leaving the little girl in the car and saving herself. Several of my officers got hurt diving into this pond trying to get to the little girl. Of course, I, at this point, don't know any of this. And I'm just sitting there watching the call, watching all these units. I see about the crash and everything. They're telling Florida Highway Patrol, hey, FHP, we need you over here, blah. They get rescue going. Hey, we need you for this. I'm watching it, and I watch one of the special call signs for like the detective units come up, and I'm like, I don't like that one. Because I was pretty sure it was the homicide unit. I wasn't 100% on it because I don't do the investigative dispatch stuff, so I wouldn't be the ones to handle them all the time. But I looked at it and was like, that looks like one of those. I don't like that. They ended up getting the dive team, homicide, and all this other stuff, and found the little girl still in the car, deceased. And she actually had been armed, even though my lady told me I don't think so, because one of the officers said they saw her throw a knife out crossing one of the bridges. So we have no idea what she was going to do with this little girl. People have been mad at us for pursuing it, but like, what if we didn't pursue her and she killed her anyway?
Right.
You're going to be mad if we didn't. It's one of those catch-22s. And like everything I've told you is in the news articles. Mm-hmm. So it's not like I'm giving you
right. Yeah.
I shouldn't.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
And I remember at the end of all of this, like at the end of the night while I'm sitting there staring at it, like it was near, I want to say 2-3 o'clock in the morning, my sergeant comes over and I'm sitting at the very end desk because we're at the backup and they're all like lined up like this instead of any other configuration, but they're like lined up desks. And I'm at the very front desk on the outside thing. And he comes up and he just crouches next to me and he just like this at me. And I looked at him and I go, fuck. Because I know what he was there for. And he was there to tell me that the little girl had died. I looked at him and I go, fuck. And he goes, yep. And he goes, we called the dive team, blah, blah, blah. They recovered her in the vehicle, blah.
Damn.
Yeah. That's one of the calls I still have nightmares about. There are several of those. And I've had several calls hit the news before. It's not that uncommon. But this one sticks with me the most just because even though I did everything I could, it still went wrong. And it's kind of one of those, hey, this showcases you can do everything perfect, but you're not going to always win the day. And it's actually become something I usually end up sharing with my trainees. Be like, hey, look, you can do everything absolutely perfect. You can whatever. And at the end of the day, it might not matter. It's unfortunate. Some days we'll get them and we'll win. Some days we won't. And it even though we're in a perfect storm, we can still fail. And just generally makes me want to try and keep the perfect storm. So even if we fail, it doesn't feel like it's on me. So that call itself makes me want to do better, even though I did the best I could.
Thank you very much for sharing this story, and the fact that you're able to, um, as you said, share this as a CTO, or for those watching and listening who don't know, a certified training officer, when you're training folks and bringing them in, letting them know that that is possible, because they do need to know that. That's why I love that there are a lot more centers that are bringing folks in for sit-alongs or during the beginning of the training phase, listening to different calls that are going on, because these are things you need to be prepared for, but
Mhm.
also that you can overcome these moments, that you will learn from it, that it does make you stronger, and you're able to pass on that knowledge. It
Mhm.
hurts, right? It definitely
Yeah.
hurts because, like you said, you guys had everything. You did
Yeah.
everything right, but in the
Mhm.
end, it still had an outcome that you were hoping was not going to happen,
Right.
but it did happen, and that's what happens in life.
Yeah.
This is the reality of this profession. Yeah, we
Mhm.
would love to have it like a TV show or a movie where there's a good ending all the time, or like Rescue 911, where dispatch gets to meet all of the people at the end of the episode, but that's not reality. That doesn't always happen. But from what it sounds like, the way you're saying this as well, you've learned from it and you're able
Mhm.
to share it with those that are coming in, and it has
Mhm.
helped you in a way as well. And that's the part that
Right.
I really do love about this profession, that even in the hard moments, we
Mhm.
can learn from it. And you've got a good support system there as well, which has
Mhm.
allowed you to be able to also evolve and continue to push forward.
Mhm. Like, as much as I feel responsible for what happened with the little girl because I
Mhm.
took her call, I know it's not on me because I did everything right. And I'm sure a lot of us understand that I feel responsible for this call because it's my call, kind of a thing.
Right.
And my family does not get that one. My family does not get the it's my call, I'm responsible for it thing
Mhm.
at all. And they just don't understand that responsibility that we feel.
Mhm.
But the fact that I explain this to my trainees, like, you will feel responsible for this, like, because I still feel responsible for this, even though it's not my fault. It's this lady who had a mental illness's fault for everything that happened.
Right. Yes.
It,
It's
it also gives that kind of a push towards them too. Like, don't blame yourself for things you hear.
exactly.
You're
And
gonna
if
hear things you can't unhear, but they're not you. They're not your fault. That kind of stuff. And I like that I'm able to bring that to them too.
man, I would have loved to have had you as a trainer. I I'm I love hearing how you're saying all of this, your passion for it and everything. I can hear it. I can see it as well. And you are the type of person that a lot of centers need, and a lot of centers do have. Some might not. But all I'm saying is that the way you approach this and all, again, I would have loved to have had you as a trainer because I would want to know this stuff. So thank you
Right.
for what you do, your approach to this, and just for your years of service. Thank you so much for everything that you do. Having you on here has been awesome. It
Mhm.
doesn't even feel like we've been talking for as long as we've been talking.
No, no, it doesn't. No.
So to wrap up this episode,
Mhm,
um, the last question I want to ask you,
mhm.
which is not a question that I sent you.
Oh.
Oh, but it's a question. If you've heard the show before, it's a
Mhm,
question that I ask everyone.
mhm.
And just listening to you talk, I'm curious what your response will be. But
Okay.
going on these 5 years with all the things that you've experienced, everything you've gone through, everything that you know now, if you could go back in time to talk to yourself in the beginning of this journey, of this your time in this profession, what is some advice you would give yourself?
Oh, Lord. See, honestly, some of the same stuff that I tell my trainees.
Mhm.
It's nothing's gonna be your fault. Do the best you can as long as you're better today than you were yesterday, and tomorrow than you are today, you're good. As long as you basically don't fuck up and kill somebody, you're good.
Right.
Because we that does happen in this field, unfortunately.
Mhm.
Um, honestly, I would tell myself at the beginning, like, hey, well, you still don't have to work holidays. Enjoy it. Because the holidays are all the fun. They're now scheduled around me, or I have to adjust what I do to them, kind of a
Yeah.
thing. Um, I tell myself I'd definitely be happier for it because I do meet my fiance through this, and that is something I'm very grateful for. um, it's kind of a hard thing to think about, like on the fly. Um, in all honesty, the thing I wish I would understand the most is how much I would love it and hate it at the same time.
Right.
Right, because it is very much a love-hate relationship. Like, when I'm not there, I absolutely love it. It's my favorite thing in the whole wide world. When I'm there, I'm like, "I fucking hate this shit. Why am I doing this? What is wrong with me?" But I also love it then too.
Right, of course.
It's just like, ugh. Especially when you get the frequent flyers calling and you're like, "If it's you again, why? Why am I doing this to myself again?"
Right, and it's like that in a lot of professions, right? A lot of people
Mhm,
have that love-hate relationship, but, deep down, hearing you talk about the profession and what you do and working with your trainees and everything, I can tell how much you definitely love it and that
mhm.
passion. There's just moments where you're just like, "Damn."
Starting to get burnout and all that
Right.
stuff.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. This has been awesome to have you
Mhm,
on here and get your, just your opinion and the talking about your experience and everything, sharing your stories. Thank you so
of
very
course.
much for being here. And this has been a lot of fun. I've enjoyed
Mhm,
having you on here. This was good. Thank you for everything that
of
you do.
course.
So I will be right back here with you in just one moment. And for those who are watching and listening, if you have any comments or questions, or you ever want to be a guest on the show, you can email me, and that's going to be wttpodcast@gmail.com. Once again, that is wttpodcast@gmail.com. You can become a supporter of the podcast. You can follow on social media, all of that. The easiest way for all of this, just simply go to links.co/WTT podcast. Again, that is links, and that's with two I's, .co/WTT podcast. You'll find everything on there. Email, all the social media, where to follow and subscribe and such. Also, you can hear the latest episode on there. You can find where to purchase Imagine Listening. Your Worst Day is our Everyday, the book, where you can pre-order book 2, and also available on Audible as an audiobook. And as I said in the beginning, I got the chance, something that not a lot of authors rather, get a chance to do is to voice their own book. I had the honor and privilege to do so. Make sure to check that out. That's available on Audible or anywhere you consume your audiobooks. This can be seen on YouTube, Facebook, as well as X and LinkedIn Live. We are sponsored by InDigital Elite Next Gen Core Services. And as always, shout outs to subscribers of the podcast. Thank you so very much, but especially all of you who are here watching, listening, supporting, and sharing. Thank you for everything. You can also listen to the podcast 24/7 on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, your favorite podcasting app, and withinthetrenches.net. Have a good one, everyone, and we will see you in the next one.
You just listened to a Code 7 Network podcast. If you have any questions or would like to be a guest on the show, send an email to wttpodcast@gmail.com.